Thanks, Paige.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Paige, I'm an alcoholic, so grateful to be here with you guys. And I am just jazzed that we are all holding up our books. Because you know what I'm going to do? Some people are absolutely like, oh no, she's going to do it. Some of you don't know and are like, oh, what's coming? Well, let's do a big book bounce around. Now, don't worry, it's not going to be super de-duper bouncy. But if you have your book to hand, amazing. Grab a hold of it. If you don't have your book to hand, don't worry about it. I'm going to do all the reading. And I apologize as a Canadian. I know I talk way too fast. So I'll do my best to slow it down. Just do my best. And where I kind of want to dive in and share my experience, strength, and hope as we go through the book is page 18. So if you have your book, grab a hold and let's dive in to page 18 and have an experience together. And so page 18, it kicks off at the very top of the page with an illness of this sort. And we have come to believe it an illness. Now I'm going to go off on a tangent, but that should give everyone time to find page 18. So you're welcome, and I'm sorry. But an illness. You see, when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had an illness that was killing me. I had an illness that was ruining my life, but I did not know what was wrong with me, and I sure as heck did not know that I had an illness. And I don't know about you, but I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous on the wings of success. You know, I wasn't on a winning streak. I have not checked the standings, but it wasn't like the Springboks when they won the World Cup. I wasn't on a winning streak. I will probably make more of those references. So I apologize for anyone here that is like, I don't like rugby. And I apologize even more profusely for people that are like, I don't know what rugby is. That's how I do. My brain's broken. And actually, that's what I thought. I thought I just had a broken brain. I thought that there was something morally wrong and bankrupt about who I was. I thought I was just a bad person. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I would do this thing. I would look for all the ways that I wasn't like you. I would look for all the ways that I was different. I would look for all my andas. You know what I mean? I'm an alcoholic anda. And I would look for all my yeah buts. I'm an alcoholic, yeah, but my ex drank more than me. Yeah, but, you know, that guy's worse than me. Yeah, but I got all these other things. And I would look for all the ways that I wasn't like you. And I was sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I was dying with an illness that I did not know I had. And one of the things I love about this book is it tells me so clearly what is wrong with me, because I thought it was a whole bunch of things. And to be fair, there's probably a bunch. But the main problem of what is wrong with me is the illness of alcoholism. And the illness itself has two qualities, two characteristics that separate me from non-alcoholics, from people that do not have this illness. Now, the first characteristic is the allergy of the body. See, I don't know what happens to you, but let me tell you what happens to me when I take a drink. See, I take a drink of alcohol and I experience something that is abnormal. And I promise you, it's abnormal. I promise you, non-alcoholics never experience this. The first thing that I experience when I take a drink is, you know what I mean? Ease, relief, release, comfort. Man, it is like a new world comes into view. It is like when the Springboks beat the All Blacks. I'm so sorry if we got some New Zealanders here. You know what I mean? It is a feeling of, all is right in the world and I am okay. You know, that does not happen to non-alcoholics. But you see, what happens is I take that drink, I get the effect, and it's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head, and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the more that I need to drink. And you see, I take a drink and I get thirstier. I take a drink and that drink demands a second. And that second drink insists on 4. And my 4th drink will not relent until I've had 8. And that 8th drink is screaming at me until I have 16, and so on, and so on, and so on. And you see, if that's sounding a little bit familiar, that is what it means to have the allergy of the body, and that is one of the defining symptoms of alcoholism. Another defining symptom of alcoholism is what is known as the obsession of the mind. And what that looks like. And again, I'll tell you what that looks like for me. What that looks like for me is I burn my life to the ground. And because I think you guys are really classy here in South Africa, I will describe it as scraping myself off the bathroom floor. The real ones know that it's usually behind a dumpster, like a lady, but I'm scraping myself up off the bathroom floor. And I say with everything that is in me, I'm never going to do it again. Or if you guys know the spiritual prayer position that happens at 3 a.m. when we're praying to the porcelain gods and vomiting up the contents of the night, please God, make it stop. I will point out, I never had a problem with 3 a.m. when that was happening. I was open to a power that would change my life in that moment. I'll just throw that out. And I would say that is it. I am never going to drink again. And I meant it. I meant it. But here's what the obsession of the mind looks like. A day, a week, a month, several months later, I get a thought. And that thought happens in my mind, and it happens when I am as sober as I am today, but my illness is untreated. And that thought tells me, you can drink. It tells me nobody will ever know. It tells me this time will be different. It tells me my problem was drinking with Canadians. But there's no alcoholics in South Africa. No, there's no drunks down there. It'll be different. I'm in 2 different hemispheres. I'm in the Southern Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. You can't get drunk in a different hemisphere. You know what I mean? I think the mental obsession, it looks like. It looks like that lie that I believe. It looks like a thought that is on me all day. Take a drink, 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 take a drink. And it gets louder and louder and louder until what little defenses I could muster are eroded away and I got a drink in my hand. But it also looks like I got a case of the suddenlies. I'm out there living my life and I have a drink in my hand and I do not know how it happened. It looks like the case of the suddenlies. Suddenly, I got that drink and I don't know how it happened, but it also looks like I'm going to kill myself anyway, so why don't I get drunk? It looks like F this, F you, F this book, F my sponsor, F this treatment center, F this counselor, F it. If you are feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. And that is how we define alcoholism. We're going to treat something deeper than that. But that is how we define it. Now, I know I've read not even a full sentence and I'm off on this tangent. But the point of this is it is described as an illness. And you might notice, for the pedantic in the room, you might notice, yeah, you know what's up. You might notice that in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, alcoholism is not defined as a disease. I'm not saying that other organizations have not defined it as a disease. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, in this book, it is defined as an illness. And what is the difference between an illness and a disease? I didn't know this. Somebody pointed it out and I had to Google to make sure they weren't lying to me, because that's how I learn things. I hear something and I'm like, there's no way that's true. And then I look it up. Or I keep bumping up against my life and pain and suffering. That's also how I learn. But the difference between an illness and a disease is that a disease is something that is diagnosed by a doctor or a medical professional. But an illness is a patient's report of their own symptoms. And why is that distinction important? And believe me, I am not going to language police anyone and tell you what you need to call alcoholism and illness, or I don't care. I don't care. But I find the distinction interesting. The reason I think the distinction is interesting is it does not matter what the people in my life think about my predicament. It does not matter what my doctor thinks, my psychologist thinks, the people in AA think, the psychiatrists, the treatment centers, the counselors, my loved ones, my friends. It does not matter what they think. They can be utterly convinced that I am in a grip of an illness that will ruin and end my life. But if I don't believe it, there's nothing that can be done. But if I can see the truth about myself, the truth about my symptoms. I can report my symptoms. Man, I am the only one that needs to be convinced of my alcoholism, because I'm the one that's got to do something about it. Now, it goes on to say, I'll just reread the thing I already read and went on a 10-minute tangent. Thanks for your patience. An illness of this sort. And we've come to believe that an illness involves those about us in a way that no other human sickness can. This sickness, I am not bad, I am not broken, but I am up against an illness, a sickness over which I could not have possibly any power. It says if a person has cancer, all are sorry for him, and no one is angry or hurt. But not so with the alcoholic illness, for with it there goes annihilation of all the things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. And you see, alcoholism is an illness that destroys everything worthwhile in my life. But I need to point something out. It is not the allergy of the body that levels my life to the ground. It is the obsession of the mind. It is the obsession of the mind that when it talks about that annihilation, I always imagine, if you've ever seen videos of atomic bomb testing, where that atom bomb just levels everything to the ground and you wouldn't know that anything existed. That is what alcoholism does. And when it says it engulfs, I think of that mushroom cloud that grows and spreads, and anyone who is in contact with me can be affected and harmed by my illness. And there are waves, just like an atomic bomb, of radiation. There is the illness that I have, man, it spreads out and it affects anyone that I come in contact with. And again, it is not the allergy of the body that does it. It is not that once I start to drink, I cannot control the amount that I take. It is the obsession of the mind. It is the fact that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that once I start to drink, that more often than not, that allergy will take me and I will ruin my life. And yet I go back to it. The allergy of the body means that I cannot drink. But the obsession of the mind means that I will drink. And that is step one. The deep concession that I will. It is not if, not maybe, but will. I will return to my alcoholism. I will return to that first drink again and again and again. And that is what levels my life to the ground. And I'll try to build it up in between sprees, and I tear it to the ground again and again and again. And I want to point something out. I'm not a sociopath. I'm not a psychopath. I haven't even needed to be tested. Like, it's more like, girl, you codependent. I will feel sad about inanimate objects. They do not have feelings, so I'm having feelings for them. You know what I mean? Some of you are like, yeah, we can tell you are weird. I know. And actually, a little confession for you guys. This is how weird I am. I'm a Brumbies fan. I know, sacrilege. The Brumbies, why? I know. I've lost some of you. Said, log off. We can't listen to her. The Brumbies, come on. All right, I know. I haven't kept up with it, don't you worry. But what we're talking about is, I know that it is hurting the people in my life. And I desperately do not want to do it. I can see that it is leading to misunderstanding. I can see that I'm creating fierce resentment. I can see the financial insecurity. I can see the disgusted friends and employers. I can see the warped lives of those who are closest to me. And yet I have no power to stop it. That is the power of this illness. I want everything in me. I want to be a good person. I want to do the right thing. I don't want to break their hearts. I don't want to betray their trust. I don't want to do it again. And the power of this illness, the power of the obsession of the mind, is that I do it again. It takes me back again and again and again. And it goes on to say, we hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected. There are many. Anyone that I might have been in contact with could be affected by my alcoholism. But this book, and by extension, what I am called to do is, and there, some of you might have heard this saying, is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. And it's like, girl, what are you on about? You see, if I am disturbed, if I have that fear, if I can feel the looming and impending relapse, the inevitability of the first drink, if I can see the hopelessness of my predicament, I am afraid. And from that point on, if I have that step one experience where I can see it is not a matter of if, but when I drink again, that I will drink again, if I can see that, I am now open to the possibility of a solution. And the idea of a spiritual awakening that happens as the result of these 12 steps, that becomes a comforting proposition that there is an answer, that there's a solution for somebody like me. I come to the end of myself. I come to a place of hopelessness. And that place of hopelessness is fertile soil for the hope of Alcoholics Anonymous. But that idea of disturbing the comfortable. If I have alcoholism, if I don't have alcoholism, man, I got options, I got choices. There's a whole lot of things that I can do. But if I have alcoholism, the first drink is inevitable, whether I think so or not, whether I like it or not. And if you're an alcoholic like me, I tried to raise a number of defenses, and none of them were sufficient. And even when they were sufficient for a while, I was wanting to kill myself the whole time. Maybe that's not your experience, but that is mine. And if I don't see the reality of my predicament as an alcoholic, man, why would I want to do those steps? Let's be real. Those steps are not appealing. All of them are ego deflation at depth, and no thank you. No thank you. I'd rather not. You know what I'm saying? And so when I am in my place of comfort, now I'm just going to meetings. I'll take my time. It's not a race. Yes, it is. I'm not racing you. I am racing the inevitability of the first drink. It is a race. And when I begin to see the reality of that, then I'm willing to grab a hold of the hope that's on offer. And it goes on to say, highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Man, we are not honest. Y'all know that doctors and medical professionals, if they suspect you have alcoholism, somebody told them, and I hope it wasn't one of you guys who told them, but they know, take the number we give them and triple it. Who told? Who was squealing? Because we are not honest with medical professionals. And it says, strangely enough, wise parents, intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. And I got my walls up. I got my masks. I don't want to let you in. And why? Why do I have my walls up with doctors? Why do I have my walls up with psychiatrists, counselors, treatment centers? Why do I have my walls up with the people who love me the most and that I love the most? Is because they don't offer a sufficient solution. And I cannot let go of that sense of ease and comfort that I get from that first drink. I can't let go of it. If I let go of that, man, who am I without it? I need a solution and they don't have one. And I know they want to take away the only thing that has ever worked for me. And even though it starts to not work like how it did, I can't let go of it. I need this answer. I need this solution. And it says, but the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution. And what is the solution that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous? The solution is a spiritual awakening. That is our solution. And if you're like, how the frick do I get that? Because I don't really want one, to be honest. I didn't want one when I got here. It's like, no, thank you. Like, what else you got? Do we have a gluten-free option? I don't want it. And don't you worry, Alcoholics Anonymous is gluten-free. So if you're celiac, you can do these steps. But how do I get that spiritual awakening? The solution, the spiritual awakening, happens as the result of the 12 steps, as taken out of this book, Alcoholics Anonymous. That is how I get there. So the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who has had the spiritual awakening, who is properly armed with facts about himself. So then what that means is that I can tell you from my own experience what it is like to have the allergy, what it is like to have the obsession. And even though it is not diagnostic of alcoholism, it can be really helpful to explain our experience with the spiritual malady, what it is like to be dry, to have the drink put down, and to be riddled with self, restless, irritable discontent. To be filled with emptiness and loneliness and pain and depression and anxiety, and I can't get out of bed, I can't sit in my own skin, to share that experience as well. To tie the diagnostic criteria, obsession and allergy, to my own experience. That is what it is mean to be armed with facts about ourselves. And it says, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. In a few hours, I can be convinced of my illness and be convinced that there's a solution for me. It does not take long to get well, and it does not take long to recover. And there is something, I don't know about you, but I was resistant to the whole deal, but I desperately wanted to be a part of that. I don't know if you guys know what it's like to have that push and pull. Like, I don't want to do those steps. I'm not open to your God. But I love your meetings and your coffee with the creamer that won't stir in no matter how hard you try. Yeah, that's an international thing. That powdered creamer, it won't stir in, And I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted. And there was that push and pull. But when I saw you, and I began to hear who I was in your stories and who I was in this book, and I saw that you had something that I didn't. You had a light on in your eyes. You had a hope in your spirit. Man, you drank the way that I drank. You felt the way that I felt. You knew what it was like to be just like me. And you were happy and sober at the same frickin' time. And I could not deny the existence of a power that maybe I didn't like, that I wasn't excited about, because I saw that power working in you. You were demonstrations of that power. And now, as somebody who has recovered as the result of these actions, these 12 steps taken out of this book as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does, I now have a responsibility to those who are just like me, who are drowning and dying of this illness that they might not know that they have, to be a demonstration of this power, of these steps, and this way of life. And it says, until an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. Now, this what goes on to bottom of page 18, top of page 19. This is what, in parts of Canada, people will call the sponsorship contract. This is who I am called to be, to show up in working with others. And how do I get from that annihilation of everything that was worthwhile in my life? How do I get from that place of hopelessness to that place where I get to be a bringer of hope to those who are dying and do not know that there is a way out? Well, the course of action that I take is, again, very simply, these 12 steps. The 12 steps is laid out in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can get well quickly. These steps are not meant to, they can be done quickly and thoroughly at the same frickin' time. I can be fast and I can be thorough. And that is how I am called to do this, so that I can work with others. Man, I don't want to let anything stand in the way of me having that spiritual awakening. If you're like me, you know what it is like. I didn't let anything stand in the way of me getting a drink. I would go after it. And that's what I got to do. I got to get after and go after this spiritual awakening. I got 5 minutes left at most, 1 minute left if I'm being, just for those that are like, oh no, is she going to wind down? I might wind up. I'm just kidding. We'll land the plane. Don't you worry. Eye on the time. So it says that the man who is making the approach So as a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous, my responsibility is to make the approach, to approach them, to reach out to the newcomer, to get their phone number, because they don't know what they need. I didn't know what they needed. Heck, I didn't know where I was half the time. You know what I mean? So I need to make the approach so that the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that I can share from my experience what it was like for me, that he obviously knows what he is talking about. And to know what I am talking about, that comes from experience. That is not theory. I was talking with a sponsee the other day, and we were speaking about if I am sharing my experience, if I have mastered something, the explanation is incredibly simple. You know when you've had to ask a question to somebody who clearly doesn't know what they're talking about, and it is long-winded and convoluted, and it's like, but if somebody is an expert, the answer, it's the directions, it's simple. And so I have a responsibility to have that experience, not just with the illness of alcoholism, but I have a responsibility to have experience with the program of action, these 12 steps, as well as the spiritual awakening. And don't you worry about the spiritual awakening. You work the steps, it'll happen, I promise. And not I promise, the book promises us this. And it says that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer. Our deportment is our conduct. I'm not called to yell at the newcomer. My deportment is how I carry myself. Is that light, that joy, that wearing the world as a loose garment. That is what shouts. And you guys know there is nothing worse than when you go to a meeting and that there is that old timer who's dry. Do you know what I mean? You don't have a cigarette next to him because you're worried he's going to go up like kindling. Like, he is dry. And he's telling you what to do. It's like, if you want what I have, you gotta do what I done. And it's like, I no thank you, do not want, no. Only you can prevent forest fires. Like, ooh, we gotta get you a hydration station. You dry. You don't say that to the old timers. They don't appreciate it. But like, we think that, and if we think it, we just gotta inventory it. But if I say it, I then gotta make an amends for it. That's a little trick for all of y'all. So, and you can imagine, and this is probably my last rugby reference. But do you guys know Eben Etzebeth? And he plays for the Springboks, and he's in the second row, and he is an ornery guy. He is in there like if there is a fight on the pitch, he's in there. He's shouting, he's ripping jerseys, he's going. And so we can imagine that if I want a solution, I'm not going to get it from somebody who's showing up a little Eben Etzebeth. You know what I mean? I need somebody that's a little more mellow, or like, you know what I mean? Not fighting, right? But it is not me that is shouting that I have a real answer. It is the way I live and the way that I conduct myself. That is what is doing the shouting, that I have a real answer. Not like a scrum half that's yelling. That's probably, you guys know little scrum halves yelling at everyone on the pitch. You guys know. That's probably my last rugby reference. Actually, I won't make promises I can't keep. Anywho, so it says that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except a sincere desire to be helpful. And if you are new here today, if you are struggling here today, if you have not had the experience that I am talking about, man, I want you to know that our responsibility is to help you. If you want to get well, we will do everything we can to help you have the experience that we have had. And it says that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no lectures to be endured. Although if you're listening to me, you might have to endure a tangent or two, and I apologize for that. Off I go, you know. These are the conditions which we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. And I've got 1 minute left, so I won't explain that whole parable. But the point of that parable of many take up their beds and walk again is those who are the least likely to recover can get well. And that's what happens here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Miracles happen. People like me, people like all of us who are doomed to die a horrific, awful death can recover. But deeper than that, Not only do we get well so that we can help others have their own experience. We get well to help others. So if you've not had this experience, what I will end on is please let us help you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.